I will here deal with these elements in the order of their age. The Book of Noah. This book was, as we have seen already, laid under contribution by the author of the Book of Jubilees and by the general editor of Enoch. Part of it is embodied in BXXXVI, and this part is presupposed as already existing by IXXXIIIXC. Now, since IXXXIIIXC cannot be later than 161 BC, it follows that we have here the terminus ad chem of this work, BXXXVI. Since BXVI, XXIIIXXXVI were known to the author of the Book of Jubilees, see my edition, p. XX, this section must have been written before the latter half of the 2nd century BC since, further, IXXXIIIXC, written before 161 BC, show a minute acquaintance with X. The date of BC must be put back to the first third of that century. Many other points in IXXXIIIXC, see my edition, p. 179, point to the acquaintance of the author of IXXXIIIXC with BXXXVI. Again, since BXXXVI makes no reference to the persecution of Antiochus, the terminus ad quern is thus fixed at 170 BC. The fact that BXXXVI were written in Aramaic is in favor of pre-Maccabean date, for when once a nation recovers, or is trying to recover, its independence, we know from history that it seeks to revive its national language. IXXXIIIXC, the fourth and last of the four periods into which IXXXIIIXC divide history between the destruction of Jerusalem and the establishment of the Messianic kingdom, began about 200 BC. See my edition, pp. 180 square, AU 6 SQQ. And marks the transition of supremacy over Israel from the Greco-Egyptians to the Greco-Syrians, as well as the rise of the Chassids. The Chassids, symbolized by the lambs that are born to the white sheep, XC 6, are already an organized party in the Maccabean revolt, but certain of these lambs became horned, i.e., the Maccabean family, and the great horn is Judas Maccabeus, XC 9, as this great horn is still warring at the close of the rule of the shepherds, XC 16. This section must have been written before the death of Judas, 161 BC, XCIII, IIO, XCI, 12-17. This, the Apocalypse of Weeks, may have been written before the Maccabean revolt. There is no reference in it to the persecution of Antiochus, but the date is wholly doubtful. IXXIILXXXII. This section is referred to in Jubilees IV, 17:21, where the author tells how Enoch wrote a book of the order of the months, the seasons of the years, and the rule of the sun. Hence the terminus ad chem is 110 BC or thereabout. XCI Civ. In IXXXIIIXC the Maccabees were the religious champions of the nation and the friends of the Chassidim. Here they are leagued with the Sadducees and are the foes of the Pharisaic party. This section was written, therefore, after 109 BC, when the breach between John Hyrcanus and the Pharisees took place, but a later date must be assumed according to the literal interpretation of CIII 14:15, where the rulers are said to uphold the Sadducean oppressors and to share in the murder of the righteous. This charge is not justified before 95 BC. As for the later limit, the Herodian princes cannot be the rulers here mentioned, for the Sadducees were irrevocably opposed to these as aliens and usurpers. The date, therefore, may be either 95 to 79 SC or 70 to 64 BC, during which periods the Pharisees were oppressed by both rulers and Sadducees. In my edition of Jubilees, pp. XXLXXI, I have given various grounds for regarding XCI Civ as dependent on Jubilees, XXXVIILXXI, from a full review of the evidence, which is given and discussed in the notes of my edition on XXXVIII 5, it appears that the kings and the mighty so often denounced in the parables are the later Maccabean princes and their Sadducean supporters, the later Maccabean princes, on the one hand, and not the earlier, for the blood of the righteous was not shed as the writer complains XLVII. I-2-4, before 95 BC, the later Maccabean princes, on the other hand, and not the Herodians, for the Sadducees were not supporters of the latter, and 2, Rome was not as yet known to the writer as one of the great world powers, a fact which necessitates an earlier date than 64 B.C., when Rome interposed authoritatively in the affairs of Judea. Thus the date of the similitudes could not have been earlier than 94 BC, or later than 64 BC, but it is possible impossible to define the date more precisely, as the Pharisees enjoyed unbroken power and prosperity under Alexander 79 to 70 BC. The parables must be assigned either to the years 94 to 79 or 70 to 64.